first of all, it's a picture of a sweet, and it happens to be brown because the chocolate is brown, which they've turned into a human, which Bernardo Silva thinks looks like Benjamin Mendy. So, but the issue I have with that is when we're talking about cartoons or caricatures, if we're going to do a cartoon figure of N'Golo Kante, for example, what do you think it would look like? What would a cartoon figure of N'Golo Kante look like? We know what it would look like, and why would that be an insult? Because there's nothing wrong with having big lips. There's nothing wrong with having dark skin, and that is what we have to address in ourselves. When we see a cartoon or a caricature of a dark figure with big lips, we say that's an insult. But you do have black men with dark skin and big lips. So why is that negative? Why is that cartoon image of a dark figure with big lips negative?
Right. Well, a few points to pick up on, John.
Yep.
I personally found it offensive. I know you mentioned why would anyone find it to be strictly racist. I don't know if you've seen much of the reaction to what you've said in your interview on Sky yesterday. I don't know if you need me to explain to you why some people would find it offensive.
Yes, please do. I do need you to.
Well, essentially, Bernardo Silva may be having a personal joke with his friend Benjamin Mendy. I completely understand that the two of them may have that kind of relationship. However, the joke was shared with everyone, the world at will, on social media, and you are there and then in the forum of basically opening your front door and screaming at what some people may find insulting. There's no reason to suggest.
You still haven't explained it. You haven't explained why it's insulting.
I could go through the history. Well, I can go through the history of all the different stereotypes and tropes that have been dealt out towards and about black people, and essentially this plays on that, John. Essentially,
how does it play on that? Because it's a picture. The cartoon does, and the cartoon of a white hand picking up those, and he's going bunga bunga unga bunga. But just look at that picture of a black figure, yes, with big lips, and black men do have big lips. So the point I was making is that if you then had to have a cartoon of N'Golo Kante, wouldn't it look similar to that? And would that be offensive?
But you're dealing with a race of people who have been dehumanized. So there is a context in any social norm regarding black people being compared to things that are not human, that are less than human. You surely must understand the concept.
Well, a chocolate is less than human. A chocolate isn't human.
It's not human. Exactly. That's my point. It's not human.
So if you're compared to a chocolate bar, and I'm not talking about the ice chalk, the chalk ice, the insults. I'm just talking about a picture of a Malteser, and if it takes human form, it isn't necessarily about a black man. It's about a chocolate which takes human form, and because the chocolate is brown, it has to be brown. Now, if there was a cartoon of N'Golo Kante, I'm sure that people will find that offensive. And what they'll find offensive is that because he will have big lips and dark skin. Now, what is offensive about big lips and dark skin that we find offensive? If it was Mbappe or me, those are
not the things that are offensive in this tweet. That's my point. It's not.
What's offensive?
It's comparing a black person to something that is either one, not human, or two, if you see the image itself, it plays on, I hate to say the word on talkSPORT, but the tropes of gollywogs in the past, there have been of minstrels in the past. It plays exactly on those themes, John, and you must have seen it.
What we have to do, I'll tell you what we have to do, we have to get away from this idea that if we show a cartoon of dark skin and big lips, because apparently the FA are saying that because it's insulting because he's got grotesquely huge lips.
I haven't seen that.
I'll show you a picture who've got huge lips. So why is it grotesque? Why is it grotesque to have huge lips? It's not grotesque. It's perfectly normal. Lots of black men have huge lips. So why, if you show a black man with huge lips in a cartoon form, is that an insult? Now, if you're showing Mbappe,
let's turn it around. You think it's not offensive in any way at all?
I don't think it's offensive in any way at all.
Okay.
No.
But what are your reasonings? So I'll ask you. You're on Twitter. If someone sent you that image, oh, sorry. I thought you were. Excuse me. But if someone had sent you,
Twitter,
you are. If someone had sent you that image and was like, John, you look like this little sweet, you'd laugh. You'd think it was funny.
Well, I'm not black, jet black with big lips.
No, okay. Let's imagine it's
that's racist.
Okay, but
if they sent me a sweet, light-skinned sweet, yes, which I am, without huge lips, and I've got average sizes for a black person, without a wide nose, I wouldn't find that offensive. No, and neither would anybody else. What they find
other
offensive
people would.
is the black skin. I don't think they would.
They would. The reaction to Bernardo Silva's tweet is enough for you to understand that other people would find that offensive.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they would, but I don't think they should. And I'll tell you why. You know why they find it offensive? Because what we think is offensive is the fact that it's very dark with big lips. Now, that should not be offensive, because had you shown Mbappe light-skinned, thin lips, people wouldn't say that's offensive if it was Mbappe, because that is the accepted face of blackness. Or me, because I'm light-skinned. And that's what we have to get away from. The fact that I'm accepted because I'm light-skinned, so therefore you can show a caricature of me or Mbappe or Kyle Walker. Now, what would be offensive is if you put the picture of Kyle Walker and then a black figure looking like that, who looks nothing like Kyle Walker, that's offensive. But if he happens to feel that someone like, if you put in N'Golo Kante or Benjamin Mendy and he feels he looks the same, it's got nothing to do. And that's what we have to get away from. And unfortunately, a lot of us, we still feel that black is wrong. Jet black and big lips is wrong. And that is why anybody who's looking at that and finds it offensive, for me, is racist in themselves, because they're looking at an image of a perfectly normal cartoon form of big lips and jet black, and there's nothing wrong with that. So why do we think there's something wrong with that?
John, listen, I'd like to just jump in here. Hello, by the way. You know how much I admire and respect you. We've gone back a long way. Yeah. But you said something a second ago. You said people need to know why they are offended. You've lived through offence. You've lived through abuse.
Absolutely.
You've lived through difficulty.
Yeah. Well, no, I've been through any difficulty because it's never been difficult.
Of course, you've dealt with it in a very dignified way, and
it's
the reason why you have been a legend to all of us as young black men, as journalists, as footballers. You are a legend. But I'm just reading while you're talking the transcript from the young Chelsea youth player who was talking about the abuse that they'd been subjected to by the former coach. And that coach made racial remarks about their facial features, about their lips, about and he made comparisons, as Hugh was saying, to the kind of thing that people find offensive at the moment. And you said in what you were just saying a second ago, John, people need to know why they are offended. And the negativity of that stereotype, what you're saying, you appear to be reinforcing that. And when I heard you on Sky Sports News, it just appeared that he understood it more than you.
We have to change the stereotype that big lips is wrong. There's nothing wrong with big lips. There are millions and millions of black people in West Africa with big lips, and we have to stop saying, if you see them and we put them in a cartoon form with big lips, that's negative.
But that's a separate point. That's a totally separate point.
And the problem here is, in a number of occasions, you've gone into the specificity of why something isn't that wrong, isn't that bad. And the problem is that when you appear to be defending what people find offensive, it's damaging for the fight against racism. It's damaging for the young player at a football club that doesn't have your status, that doesn't have your confidence, that doesn't have your legendary status. Suppose they're the only black person in the dressing room. Suppose they're the only black person in the room outside of football. When people are legitimized by what you're saying to be able to offend people on the basis of the color of their skin, what you say hurts.
Why is he offended by the color of his skin, being black? Why should he be offended?
Well, if you look at those young players in the dressing room at Newcastle,
that's what we have to change, Darren. We have to change the narrative that being black and having big lips is offensive.
But again, you're going into the specifics of this, and I think we'll have to just agree to disagree on this one. But I think it's just one of a number of things that you have in the recent past come out and spoken about, and been on the side of the aggressor rather than the people who are hurt and offended by what has been said. And that's what people are struggling to understand.
We're talking specifically about this incident. Now, I more than anybody else will tell you about the ills of racism. I more than anybody else will tell you about that. And I call out everybody as being racist on talkSPORT, in Sky Sports, everywhere. We are all racist. We are all racist. So don't start to talk about I'm defending any kind of racism, because I'm not. But I'm talking about specifically about this incident. So you're saying to me I'm talking about the specifics, but isn't what this is about? the specifics of this particular thing. Now, you can go on to other things which we're going to talk about which are racist. But if you just want to talk specifically about this, we can't then go back to historically because black men were this, were that. Now, the point I'm trying to make is we have to change the narrative because there are lots of black men, and I'll go back to N'Golo Kante. Show me a cartoon of little N'Golo Kante, and is he not going to have big lips and big jet black? And if it was, is that going to be offensive? Because that is the way he looks. There are lots of black men who look that way. So we have to change the narrative of that being negative. We have to start saying there's nothing wrong if you show a cartoon, depending on the context of which you're actually using it, of a black man, jet black, with big lips, of which they are millions. And there's nothing wrong with that.
John, lots of messages coming in regarding what you've been saying so far. I just wanted to put some more points to you around some of the things that you've previously said in the media, and not necessarily about what you've said, but how those words are taken. 4 headlines. I put your name into the internet earlier. 4 headlines that came up in news. John Barnes says Liam Neeson deserves a medal over racist comments. John Barnes blasts ridiculous accusations of racism aimed at Bernardo Silva. John Barnes insists Peter Beardsley's racially abusive language was banter. John Barnes launches stinging attack on Jadon Sancho over racism comments. Are you ever afraid, John, that some of the things that you've said will be twisted and used by others to, I'm not going to say support racist language and racist incidents, but also to maybe to dismiss them?
Well, first of all, they were the headlines. Did you read the story?
No, and that's my point. People will take from your interviews.
So when,
but you've been in the media before, John. You know people will take what they want to from what you say.
Raheem Sterling said that the media influences people based on what they put without telling the truth. So let's talk about those things. Liam Neeson, and we went through the Liam Neeson thing in terms of what he actually said, which I'll come back to. Let's talk about Peter Beardsley. What I said, if you read it, what I said is I understand why Peter had to go through what he go through because his language is unacceptable in this day and age. That's what I said.
No, I agree with you on that point. My question is about the headlines, John. People will take what they want. The people texting in, the people listening at home will take what they want from what you say if you give them a chance.
Do you not think we should have more responsible headlines to reflect exactly what people say?
I do.
So why don't you blame
agree
the
with
headline
that.
writers?
I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you.
For influencing people negatively, and that is why when you look at some newspapers who are racist, and that's what they do. I don't want to mention the newspaper, so that's what they do to influence people. We can see the whole thing, what's going on now politically, in terms of influencing people. So do you not think from a journalistic point of view, you should really want to get to the truth in terms of what people say, rather than saying, oh, you know what the newspapers are like, they're going to lie and try and stitch you up.
Well, John, you mentioned the newspapers, so as I'm from a newspaper, I'll just respond. Yep. You said that we should look at what you say in context.
Yeah.
Now, you gave the interview to Sky Sports, to Sky News, where you talked about Liam Neeson deserving a medal. Now, that they are your actual words.
They are my words. Will I explain why he deserves a medal?
Well, yeah, but I'll let you say it because you can give yourself some context. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I gave context in it as well, but if you just say the headlines and there's no context, and you know that.
Because I was about to...
Why I say he deserved the medal, Darren,
sure.
Why I say he deserved the medal is because this is the conversation that needs to be had in terms of this is the way I feel negatively about black people, whatever, and the conversation that needs to be had is why I feel that way, how I then all of a sudden after we got help, went to church, realized I was wrong. Yeah. So therefore, that conversation needs to be had as to so many people feel the same way, but they're afraid to actually say it because if they say it, what's going to happen to them is what happened to Liam Neeson. So people who may feel the same way, I'm not talking about going to kill anybody, but I'm talking about who may feel negatively towards people of color or women or homosexuals are afraid to say it because if they come out and say it, what's going to happen to them is what's going to happen to Liam Neeson. Why I say he deserves a medal is because he was brave enough to say to people, I was wrong in terms of what I felt and I got help and I know that I was wrong, but more people are afraid to say it because of the response.
Here's a problem.
That's why he deserves a medal.
Here's a problem with what you just said. Do you think the parents of Stephen Lawrence think that their aggressors deserve a medal because they felt that they wanted to kill someone and actually went out and did it? Or what about Trayvon Martin? Or all those young men who were killed by people by somebody who literally just wanted to go out and kill a young black man?
Liam Neeson didn't do that.
Yeah, but the fact is he wanted to.
He stopped it.
What
and therefore he got help?
He met a young black man when he went out and felt like he did.
And he stopped himself doing it because he knew he was wrong.
But my point is...
And therefore, so the point I'm making is that somebody who then said, I work in a shop, and when a black man came in, I thought I'm going to look at him because I know he's going to steal something, but then I realized I was wrong. and I got help, or I'm a woman walking down the street and I'm going to clutch my back tightly because two black men are coming towards me, then I thought about it and thought, why am I doing that? I am wrong. So therefore, somebody who actually realizes they're wrong stops themselves from doing whatever they're going to do, or even stops themselves thinking negatively about black people, are now afraid to say it, because if they say it, oh, you were clutching back tightly, so you're racist. This conversation is one that needs to be had.
You see, I keep staying silent because I'm conscious of not talking over you, so I apologise if I did that before. The point I was trying to make was that if, when Liam Neeson felt the way he did, he had bumped into a young black man, you have no way of being able to tell what he would have done. And my point is, my point is that you're not in a position to talk about Liam Neeson, a white man would have felt, but you are in a position as a black man who suffered racism to identify with the many people who will have been hurt by what you said as a leading figure, not just in broadcasting, but for our generation. And that's why so many people are hurt by what you're saying, because they feel, quite rightly, I have to add, that you are legitimizing and giving confirmation bias to the people who book you to come on in these difficult situations, because they know you will say what they want to hear instead of saying the difficult thing that they don't want to hear.
This is difficult because it's difficult for everybody to hear. This is difficult for black people to hear. You know what's difficult for black people to hear? That their own people sold them into slavery, which is true. In Africa, they did. And the white people took them. So these are conversations that we need to have to get to the truth. Rather than just saying, he's racist, he's racist. Every incident has to be taken on its own merits. So the point I'm making about Liam Neeson, which is specific, the point I'm making about Bernardo Silva, which is specific, and if you want me to be specific about other real racist incidents, like the lack of black managers and what happens in that, then I'll be specific about that. But I'm here to talk about Bernardo Silva, and if you want to talk about specific incidents, everything isn't black and white. Everything is the same. And you're saying this is detrimental to the fight against racism. I'll tell you what's detrimental to the fight against racism is when every time something happens which isn't racist, we then say it's racist, which will turn people against us. Turn right-minded people who may think, listen, they're playing the race card again. They're playing the race card again. And you know it happens.
Yeah, you're right. It does happen. It does happen that people say playing the race card. But here's the thing:
if something happens which I don't agree with, which I think it's not racist, I will say it. More often than not, I say it's racist if you listen to what I actually say. And I think that we have to be balanced. Everything isn't racist.
Here's the thing: I talked about confirmation bias. We got a lot of people calling up saying John Barnes is the voice of reason. John Barnes is talking sense. Those people, 99% of them are white. They will never know what it feels like to be the only black person in the room. They will never know what it feels like to be in a situation where somebody insults you and you have to laugh it off because the alternative will see you thrown out of work or thrown out of your football club. They will never know what it feels like to be embarrassed when somebody makes some kind of joke about how you look, how you speak, what you eat, what you wear, and you not be able to say anything back because somebody will say you're an angry black man or black woman.
Absolutely.
And
100%.
so when you say what you say, you give succor to all these people who don't see or understand how deeply racism is affecting young black men, young black women, young Asian men and women, and all the people who look to you.
Oh, right, okay.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, forgive me. Sorry, John. Go ahead.
That's okay. Not just footballers, obviously. And of course, in the newspaper, when the newspaper influences people, it's the newspaper reporters, but not the sports media, Darren, is it? Which is what you said. You said, yes, it's in the news, it's on the television, but not the sports media. Why not the sports media? Why are they different? Are they because maybe you are part of the sports media and you don't upset them, which is why you said it's not the sports media?
No, you're right about the sports media. You're absolutely right about the sports media.
You said what Raheem Sterling said is right, but you said it's the news, and I will quote you as you did, and you said that's not the sports media. They're more fair than others. Did you not say that?
Did I? What, in the course of this conversation?
No. When Raheem Sterling said about the influence the media has in influencing people's perceptions, you said he was right, but you said not the sports media. You said it was the television and the news media.
Well, I'll clarify what I said, because I think I said a number of times I mentioned the sports media.
Not in that interview straight after. And I read it in the paper.
Sure.
Quoted, you said, yes, he's right by the news media, by the television media, but not the sports media.
No, not just the sports media. I wrote, and I remember tweeting at the time,
they must have left it just out. I will get it again because I've got it written down and I've got it actually out. So
I do remember tweeting at the time that we live in a media culture that emboldens the racism and that young black men are suffering. and I've written at the time.
So you didn't say not the sports media.
I can't recall. What I said was
I actually saved it and put
sure,
it down
no, go
because
ahead.
I was saying it is everybody.
But
so
what I would say,
you want to talk to me about how other people are going to look at it and how people look. We also have to be responsible as well.
No, absolutely.
And take responsibility for what we say.
John, I completely agree with that.
Sports media are equally as racially biased.
Yeah, of course. We completely agree with that. We work in the sports media. Just one more question on Bernardo Silva and what the FA do from here. Would you be disappointed if Bernardo Silva was punished?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes, I would.
Because
of what I explained.
Just because you don't think it's offensive, even though other people have drawn some offense from it.
Well,
he does have a responsibility in terms of what he puts publicly out there. He still has a responsibility.
This is the issue. Look at why are they offended by that picture? I know the ramifications historically. I know the cartoon. I know everything that goes on, how black people are disenfranchised. Look at that cartoon, and I'll go back to N'Golo Kante and say, what we can say is that we are not allowed to show any caricatures of black people. Then we know that we can't do that. Whether it's offensive or not, it's wrong. So are we allowed to show caricatures of black people? And if we're allowed to show caricatures of black people, and a black man like N'Golo Kante is very black with big lips, what kind of a cartoon shall we show of N'Golo Kante? Shall we show him with light skin and thin lips and a thin nose? Secondly, there is nothing wrong with a caricature of a black man with big lips and black skin, because there's nothing wrong with big lips and black skin. That is what we have to change. The narrative that is negative. And we are still promoting and enforcing that black skin and big lips is negative by then saying if you show somebody with black skin and big lips, it's negative. So how do all the black men with black skin and big lips feel? How do they feel? They must feel negative because that's a negative image of what black is. And we have to get away from that and change that.
John Barnes, England and Liverpool legend. John, thank you so much for your honesty. Thanks.
Thank you, John.